Hello everyone and welcome. Today we are going to go through some nerve questions. So how I'm going to approach this is that I'm just essentially going to talk through my thought process and how I would approach it if I were you. So let's begin. Okay, immediately I know that number one exam technique is that I won't read anything except the question first. So, of course, in the exam, you won't just cross it out. But, here I will, okay? Just to showcase my technique. So, let's read the question. It said, describe the components and events involved in a reflex arc. Okay, well, that's quite a positive question because I know just from reading that, it says describe, and it says components and events, so easily, all I need to do is write a list of everything that is in the reflex arc. So I know there are action potentials. I know that there are sensory neurons, motor neurons, relay. Okay, well, what else are in a reflex arc? Let me think. So, the main thing I miss, synapse, right? So how is it going to occur? So synapse. Let me think. Is there anything else I can think of? No. Okay. Do I really think I've answered this question? Does this relate to this? This. Well, I believe so because I haven't explained because it's a describe question and it just wants me to say knowledge essentially. And these are actually all components of a reflex arc. So, let's check the answer. What does it say? So, it says about action potential. Oh, that's quite big. It's about action potential. Great, we have that mark. What else does it say? Synapse. Also great. One other mark. So it said relay neuron. That in itself is one mark. So we basically have 3 marks, but let's see where we missed out. Last point says nervous impulse in motor neuron passes to the effector muscle. Yeah, that is true. So the more detailed, the better. None of these answers are an explained sort of style. It's just stating the obvious. So that's a point I would write in my notes next time so that I don't make that mistake again. It's not a mistake, but it's nice to broaden your understanding of the topic through the mark scheme. Even if you've got for example here, 3 out of 3 marks, doesn't matter. You should always be open to learning not only new points, but to understand the pattern of when you need to add them in your answers. So that's great. Okay, 3 out of 3. Let's go. Okay, next question. It says suggest. Okay, suggest. If you struggle on any of these questions, in terms of what the command word wants from you, I have a playlist on my channel all about command words where I go through examples and you can understand it more better. So this one says suggest one benefit to the squid of the reflex response described above. Right, well, do you know what the reflex response is? Because I don't. It's because I haven't read it. So now I'm thinking, okay, you know what? I actually am going to read that information on top. So, what does it say? Let's rub this out first. Okay. It says, squids are an order of aquatic animal. Yeah, well, that doesn't really matter. So many species of squid show a reflex response to changes in their body position. Okay, well, if it's about body position, I know from doing loads of exam questions that it's probably to do with movement or balance. But let's just read on to see whether my hypothesis is correct. It says sensory receptors called a statocyte detect changes in the body position of the squid in the aquatic environment, and the reflex response corrects the squid's body position. Right, well, I can't think of anything else in terms of body position, so I might actually stick with that answer, because this relates to the question. It wants a benefit, so when I write the answer, probably need to spin it in a more positive light, not just by saying movement or balance. And yeah, no, it's that is essentially saying the benefit to the squid because of the reflex response, because it changes, is a response to changes in their body position, so it helps them, move around more, balance, because I mean, we need balance. They need balance. The squids need balance. I mean, everyone needs balance. So I think that's quite a reasonable answer. So let me write that down. I'm gonna say about maintaining balance and enable movement. Okay. Am I happy with that response? That answer? Yep, I am. There's nothing else I can think of, so... And it's a 1 marker. Don't get, bogged down on 1 markers. If you got it, that's great. If you didn't get it, try and think about it in a more content-y way. Or sometimes in an application way, just as the... Oh, God. Like this question here. But if you're ever stuck, as I like to do, I'm very famous for this, in among my friends, that I circle it and I put a really big question mark next to it, and I circle that as well, so that I know at the end of the paper I'd go back to this. So let's check the answer. What does it say? Okay, the idea. You see, when they say the idea of, that essentially means that if you have something similar to maintains balance or efficiency of movement, then you will still get the mark, okay? You don't need that word for word, what's written in the mark scheme here, but it needs to be of a similar idea, concept to what's written. But we're trying to get you to answer the questions with proper mark scheme style. So we care about that. Okay, next one. I love this question. So, okay, let's read it. What can you conclude from figure 2.1 about the mechanism by which statocytes acts as a transducer? Immediately, I know from practice that I should always define terms that are written in the question. So here it says a transducer. I'm going to define it. I don't care whether I'm spectacle or I'm unsure whether I should actually write down the definition. I don't care. I'm going to write it down because you never know, it could be a mark, and it is a mark. I trust me on that. So I'm going to say what a transducer is. However, I'm not going to say, oh yeah, it just converts one form of energy to another. No. The difference is that I'm going to relate it to what's going on here. And what's going on here, I meant figure 2.1. So I can see that the statolith moves around. So I'm thinking, okay, kinetic energy. And I can see neurons. So I'm thinking nerves, all of that. So then I'm thinking electrical energy. Now that is going to be my answer of my definition of transducer. So it acts as a transducer by converting kinetic energy to electrical energy. Always define the terms written in the question. The way you should think about it is that imagine the examiner does not know. Imagine they're just a 7-year-old and you have to explain it to them. The thing is, if you don't write these sorts of things down, how does the examiner know you know it? Someone might know it, someone else might not. So that's why it's very important to just state the obvious. Just state what a transducer is. Just say it. Okay. What else? going to do now is I am going to look at the figure, and I'm going to try and understand it, because at the end of the day, I can see that this question never said, oh, explain, evaluate, outline, none of that. It's because this figure is something that we've never seen until now. So that's why I'm guessing they said conclude, right? Because it's like, well, from this figure, what can you gather? What can you understand from it? That's the way you can rephrase the question. So let's see what I gathered from it. So, okay. Well, just by looking at it, it says it's a sensory receptor, so that's great to know. It's a receptor, so I'm thinking nerve, I'm thinking action potentials, I'm thinking depolarization, membranes. See, whenever you see a word or something like that, like this, just think about keywords of that topic. Just running to make it run through your head. And you'll reach to the answer quicker. So, okay. By looking at this, I can see there is a statolith. Right, and it says there's a mineral mass that can move within the statocyte. So, this can move. Okay, nice to know. What's also very interesting about this diagram is that there are sensory hairs everywhere. And well, we know from nerves what sensory, like, neurons do. So we can make that connection. Moves around. It's going to be touching the sensory hairs. Okay, well then I'm going to think to myself, well, what's the consequence of that? It would be that it moves the sensory hairs, because of course it's not going to stay rigid. It's not going to like stand up straight. It's going to bend and move around. I'm also going to think, well, the membrane of the sensory hairs are going to depolarize, because that's just something that's always written in the mark scheme for nerve questions about the membrane depolarizing. So I'm just going to chuck it in there. But it also makes sense because at the end of the day, these are membranes. So I think for a 3 marker, that should suffice. So let's write that down. What did I say? Okay. So the statolith moves the sensory hairs. And causes the membrane of the sensory hairs to depolarize. Okay, am I confident enough to say that my answer answers the question? Well, my answer is essentially based on my interpretation of this figure of how a statocyte acts as a transducer. I didn't add anything other than that, so I'm pretty satisfied with that answer. Let's check the mark scheme now. Okay. Okay. So it says kinetic energy is converted to electrical energy. Right. So notice how I told you defining terms and linking it to like whatever the figure is and stuff, how that carries marks, just by saying this sentence here, which we thought we were just stating the obvious facts, right? Just gave us 2 marks. 2 marks. That could have like been the difference of an A and an A star. Marks matter. You just need to pick them up everywhere you go. Let's see what else. The idea of the movement of the statolith moves sensory hairs. Well, yeah, we said that. Like, we just looked at the figure, we just said what we saw. So that's great. Then it says the membrane of sensory hairs depolarizes. Again, I told you, that point is always written on the mark scheme. Of course, not written exactly like that, but just the concept of the membrane depolarizing. That is great. We basically got 4 marks for 3 marker, so that is great news. So I hope by me going through these questions, you got to see them in a different light and got to understand how to approach them. So now I shall go try some questions and let me know how it goes.